Hello, I'm Scott Manley, and today I am going to be looking at the brand new demo for Kerbal Space Program. Now, this is the first update to the game in a couple of months, and it's actually the first glimpse of Kerbal Space Program on the new Unity 4 game engine. So it's a full game, but it has a bunch of features disabled. For example, there is no runway, no spaceplane hangar, but you do have the standard vehicle assembly building, and it is extremely stripped down. You only have 1 meter rocket parts, very similar to the parts that you had in the old 0.13 demo. But the problem with the old 0.13 demo was that it was about a year old, and we're basically missing a whole bunch of upgrades to the graphics engine and functionality. So I'm going to basically try and run through a mission just to show how it looks and how it behaves, and because I'm thinking that if you've just downloaded the demo as a new player, you might want to have some idea of how to get to the moon. So this is me showing you how to get to the moon using the new Kerbal Space Program Demo, with all the features and everything that have been added. So what we have is a capsule. We have a parachute on top. We're going to put a decoupler under that because we want to ditch everything after we land. Underneath that, I'm going to put an advanced SAS module because apparently people think that that helps new pilots. I'm not 100% convinced, but I'm going to put it on there as an option. Now, underneath all this, we put a short fuel tank, and then we put the smallest rocket engine we can find. We click on the symmetry mode icon and angle snap icon. We select 4 landing legs and put those around. So this is going to be my landing stage that will land on the moon. If I just disable this, I can probably stick a little ladder on the side. Not that we actually need a ladder on the moon, but I figure that you might want to, make the thing look the part. So there's a few landing sections and a ladder on the side so your Kerbal can get down. Now, that's going to be the landing stage. We need a decoupler to decouple it from the rest of the rocket. Now we need to build ourselves a boost stage that will take us all the way into orbit, and we're going to build this nice, hugely long thing here. Actually, I'm going to use one of these. With the LVT-45 versus LVT-30. The 45 has thrust vectoring enabled. Thrust vectoring is where you can adjust the direction that your exhaust is firing so that you can get some steering control. Now under this we put another stack decoupler. And I'm not going to use fuel lines. Fuel lines you can work out on your own, but I'm basically going to build a less efficient rocket than I otherwise could. But this is kind of more like a conventional rocket in that we're putting a tricoupler, and now we're going to build some more. There we go. We're going to build an extra stage underneath it. And this is going to be our boost stage, stage 1 here. This is going to be our stage to get ourselves into orbit and boost it towards the moon. And this will be the landing and return stage. And for this first stage, we're going to use LVT-30. Now, this is a more powerful engine, but it does not have thrust vectoring enabled. So, you're going to need to add some wings. I'm also going to add struts here between these, and that will hold things stable, make it easier to steer. Similarly, I'm going to put some struts here just so that the rocket flexes less. And to actually get some steering in the lower atmosphere, let's take the AV-R8 winglet, and we're going to put 3 of those around. Again, notice that we have symmetry mode set to 3 in the bottom left corner. Okay, so that is us. We have a rocket, and we're going to launch to the moon. Let's call this Demo Moon Rocket. Now, of course, the rocket is spelt with the U in Kerbal Space Program, but actually in many versions it's given an umlaut on top, which makes it more like Mune. So if you want to do your best, Scandinavian, you can call it the Mune rocket. Anyway, you're on the pad. You're going to hold down the shift key to get maximum thrust. Then you're going to press T key to enable your automated SAS. The T key is a toggle that switches it on and off, during which the ASAS system will try to keep the rocket pointed. Also, go to the map screen, and at the bottom here you're going to bring up this little artificial horizon. Now all your steering is going to be via the artificial horizon. You can look at the rocket if you like, but you're going to use this artificial horizon for steering. Once you've got your throttle maxed out, hit the space bar. And now you're going to be flying straight up vertically. And it will steer itself because you have the SAS enabled. And you see the little winglets on the bottom there, basically trying to adjust and keep yourselves vertical. Now, the idea is we are going to go up 10 kilometers on this, as far as we can, but we're going to go up to 10 kilometers and then we're going to start to turn over. And ideally, we're going to turn over to 45 degrees on the 90. So that is on the right side of the nav ball we're going to be turning towards. We're going to press the D key to turn towards it. But we aren't there yet. At the top you see our altitude, and on top of the nav ball you see the surface velocity. Now the surface velocity is getting up to 170. Now it's time to back things off a little, because you don't want to go above 200, otherwise you're wasting fuel. So press the control key to throttle down, and keep throttling it down slowly to keep your velocity from increasing too quickly and burning out all your fuel. Once we're above about 10 kilometers, that's when we're going to start firing our rockets at full power instead. Basically, we're fighting the atmosphere lower down, and as we get up, the atmosphere gives up its control, and instead we want to unleash the full power of our rockets. So press T to turn off your SAS now that you're above 10 kilometers, and hold the D key. Now also thrust back up to maximum. You're just holding the D key, trying to get all the way over to 90. You might have to correct some spin, but that may or may not. Whatever you do, just push the D key and you'll get some control. It'll stop you spinning. So you're trying to aim it here, and we're about to stage. Press the spacebar to stage and you're now floating free. Now you see I start to rotate because a lot of the control is coming from this. So press the spacebar to fire again. Now press M to go to the map screen. And you can see this is our course that has been plotted out. You can also see the course of our debris. We are accelerating away from it. So we want to get, if you mouse over this AP on the arc, that is our apoapse, and that is the highest point. We want to get that above 100 kilometers, but we want to get it as far sideways as possible. So using the nav ball, turn off your SAS again with the T key, and just try and use the controls delicately to keep it in the middle of this little prograde indicator. The prograde indicator will basically is the point at which you're getting the most efficient thrust, because you're firing exactly along your velocity vector. Now, if you do this too quickly, you might find yourself falling back towards the planet. Look at the T minus value, the T minus 13, 14 seconds. If that is increasing, you're doing well. If it is decreasing, you should lift your nose vertical again. But you want to be going sideways as much as possible. I've seen several tutorials where people just kind of go straight up, far too steep, and they end up wasting a lot of fuel by doing that. You want to be kind of picking up sideways velocity rather than vertical velocity, because that's how you get into orbit. So I'm going to just lock it, and you see I'm about to hit 100. I'm going to hit the X key. X will cancel all my thrust, and that is me on a suborbital trajectory. Now, this will continue up and eventually land on the dark side of the planet. So I want to click on here, click on the orbit, and you'll see this Add Maneuver. So the Maneuver node gives you these 6 icons to select. And the one we want is this green one that looks like a plane viewed from in front with like a tailplane and the thing. It matches the one on your nav ball, you notice. So this is the prograde vector, and we're going to increase our velocity. And you just drag it very slowly, and you'll see that the periapse marker appears on this yellow orbit. This is telling us what orbit we will be in after we perform this maneuver. So we want to get that to about 100, and you'll see it happening there. 99, 101. As these start to go around, that's an indication that you're pretty close to your maneuver limit. So now we can come out of the map mode, and that maneuver is now stored in our navigation computer. And you can see on the right side of the navigation ball, you have 261.1 ms, that's meters per second. It tells you underneath the estimated burn is 9 seconds. And then it says node in T minus 2 minutes 37 seconds. So The actual direction you want to burn is also marked on your nav ball as this blue vector here, this blue marker. So adjust yourself over very carefully, and once you put yourself in the middle there, press the T key to lock in your autopilot. And you're going to now use the dot, the period, or the full stop, and the comma key. Now, period, full stop will increase your time acceleration, and comma will reduce it. So if I press it, you'll see, oh, I can't warp faster. There we go. You have to wait until you're above 70 kilometers. But there I go. I'm traveling at 5 times faster, and you can see my node in T-1 minute is dropping very quickly. When this gets down to about 20 seconds, you want to press the comma key to stop the time acceleration. And there we go. So now I'm going to get ready for this burn. I'm just going to adjust my position slightly. And when I get to about T-5 seconds, I'm just going to start burning full thrust to get myself into orbit. And you'll see it coming up. You'll see this coming down. As you get towards the bottom, you can... Oh, there we go. I'll get pretty close. 3.6 meters per second. So what is my final one? If I press on the maneuver node and remove it, now I can see my final orbit. I'm in 101 by 95 kilometer orbit. That's a relatively good orbit. Now, the whole purpose of this mission was to go to the moon. So if we zoom out by using the mouse scroll wheel, we find the moon here. Now we can click on the moon and set that as a target, and you'll see now it turns green. And we get these indicators showing our ascending and descending node. They're not that important. If they're really far off, if they're more than like a degree, it might matter. But generally, you don't need to worry about this. Also, now we're in orbit, it's a good idea to hit F5 and save things. The quick save system is a new addition that was not previously in the demo. Previously in the demo, if you wanted to land on the moon, you had to do it all in one go, and there was no saving and no going back. And frankly, it was a whole lot harder. It was the most exciting thing I'd done in a video game. So anyway, I am going to go back. Pardon me. What I want to do now is we want to arrange a maneuver out to the moon. So again, we can click on any point in this orbit to initiate a maneuver, and the place that we want is kind of where the moon would be seen rising. It's kind of 90 degrees to where the moon is. We're going clockwise or anti-clockwise around over time, so we want to go here. If you get it wrong, you'll see. Now again, you want to grab the prograde vector and drag that up, and you can see my apoapse is going up. And we're going into what's called a lunar transfer orbit. Now, we stop it exactly where the moon's orbit is, and you can see that the closest approach is 7,000 kilometers. That is where the moon is. So it looks like we are actually firing too late. So what we can do is zoom in, adjust the camera so you can see this, and then very carefully grab this circle and drag it leftwards until the maneuver and the two nodes get much closer, and you'll see this happening. There we go. That is an indication that we have an encounter with the moon. Excellent. Now the only thing with this encounter is that you actually is going to encounter inside the moon. We might want to adjust it so we don't actually hit the moon, but we can do that once we're approaching. Let's see. Yeah, let me see what we have. Yeah, there, look, we get a periapse. There, okay, so if we burn there, we are going to end up... Oh, yeah, missed that a little. There, okay. Okay, so if we burn there, we will encounter the moon, and in fact, if we do nothing, we will be cast off into interplanetary space because of the moon's gravity. Regardless, we are going to wait for this, and it says our node is 18 minutes away. So we are now going to use time acceleration. We can press the time acceleration key multiple times. Press it 3 times to bring up 58 times time acceleration, and that gives you roughly 1 second per minute, which makes it a lot easier to travel that 15 minutes around the planet to get yourself onto a lunar encounter orbit, the lunar burn point. So cut the time now. You've got about a minute to go. Actually, I have about 20 seconds to go, and I want to rotate my spacecraft around, And if we're looking, well, we can't see the moon yet, but the moon will be rising momentarily. There we go. And lock that in and start accelerating using the shift key, maximum thrust. We're going to be burning as quickly as possible, and once our velocity drops, oh, there we go. Yes. Now that I forgot about that. That was our lower stage burning out. So we're going to hit space now, and we're now on our final upper stage. Press space again. And this is the landing stage. It should have enough fuel to get us there and back. Should. It would be unfortunate if it didn't. But there's the moon rising. And you can see that is the best time to burn. Without the maneuver node system, you can wait for moon to rise and then start burning off to try and hit the encounter. And of course you can do these burns, you can do these burns in the map mode if you like. If you press map, you can actually see the burn happening. And I'm just going to throttle off just a little. There we go. And look, I have a moon periapse. I'll just now use my thrust very slowly and bring that down to about 100 by mousing over. I'm mousing over to get the actual altitude, the periapse. And 400, 300. I'm just using a very low amount of thrust to do this carefully. 150. There we go. Okay, so now we're actually coming around in a completely different trajectory from what the maneuver node said, but that is fine. We're actually pretty much in a free return trajectory now. If we miss our encounter, then we will come back towards the planet Kerbin, which is kind of a nice, comforting thing. Again, hit F5 to save. If you need to reload, hold down F9. So now we can use time acceleration. And we are just going to time accelerate a lot faster than usual. We have up to 1,000 times time acceleration. And move your camera to watch for the moon. You don't want to miss this thing. There we go. And you see we're now falling towards the moon, and we should have a 100-kilometer encounter with it. Now, what happened there was that our frame of reference changed from orbiting Kerbin to orbiting the moon. You see everything glitched? That was because our coordinate system changed. So at that point, it's good to stop the time acceleration and come out and see the situation. So we are going to fly around the moon here, and we're going to shoot off. So what we want to do is find the periapse location, add a maneuver, and now we actually want to be slowing down. So we grab this little triangular one that it's a little three-way one, and drag it until our orbit becomes a circle or becomes an ellipse. Actually, we want to drag this down so that our apoapse gets much lower to the surface, because we're going to want to be landing ultimately. There we go. That's 154. There we go, 134. So that's going to be a 243 meter per second burn. And we have 1 hour to the node. So let us turn our rocket around. Now, one thing about this space capsule is a very small spacecraft. Is very easy to rotate. And if you find it too sensitive, you can hit the caps lock key. And you'll notice as I flick between caps lock and not, in the bottom left, there is this stage indicator, and then you have roll, yaw, and pitch. When those indicators are blue, you are in fine control mode. And it's a little easier to steer this very, very unstable, very fast-turning spacecraft. So I've put my position, my nav ball, on the blue vector, and we are now going to time accelerate again. It says, let's use times 1,000 for a few seconds, then drop down to times 100. It's going to take us about 20 seconds to get in there. You can now see the moon up close, and you know what? If you're not comfortable with landing, if you think you've burnt too much fuel, you can always just choose to go home. Apollo 8 did it. There is no there is no shame in going home. Unless you make your own shame. Also, I mean, you might want to build a bigger rocket. That's the other possibility. There we go. So now it says 16 seconds of burn time, so I'm going to wait until node is T-8, so we burn equidistant times. And we're going to burn until we get ourselves into orbit. We're just going to follow this thing as it goes down. You see we're in a slightly inclined orbit. That's okay, it doesn't matter too much. And when that hits 0, we hit X. There we go. There we are. Now we are in, we click on the maneuver node to remove it. Now we are in a nice orbit around the moon, and we want to now land. So before you land, hit F5 to save. Very, very important. So we want to land on the light side of the moon so you can see the shadow, and I think this is probably a good crater to land in. It's going to be a nice, easy place to see. So time accelerate until you are opposite that crater, right? We're going to hit the time accelerate key, and you'll see we go around a little faster. We're aiming for around about there, let's say, right? Because the moon is rotating underneath me, and you don't want to find that the moon has rotated to the wrong place. So we could do a maneuver node for this, but instead I'm just going to use the nav ball directly. I am looking for the retrograde vector. That's the prograde vector. If you're looking on the nav ball, that is the retrograde vector. So we want to fire along this vector until our orbit intersects the planet. So there we go. Watch it going down. See the periapse? That periapse is the closest point to the planet. And I'm just going to let that come down very slowly until it reads, you know, about 4 or 5. We're not going to actually, we're going to, there we go. So that'll put us very low over the crater, but we won't land. We might hit a mountain, but at that point, we're going to be able to decide whether we want to land or not. Again, F5, very nice. So we want to now time accelerate, and you'll watch in beautiful expando, whatever, in beautiful Kerbal vision as we fall towards this moon, and we might even see the Kerbin rise momentarily. There we go, that's the planet Kerbin rising. And that's the sun rising. What a beautiful sight. And now our altitude at the top, we're going to wait until we're about 5 kilometers. And at that point, we have to decide whether we want to land or not. And to land, we have to kill all our lateral velocity. And that is where where the men are sorted out from the boys, as they say. So because we're falling down, we're at the closest point in a high orbit, we are going to be moving very quickly. We're going to be moving about 600 meters per second. And there we go. So that is our crater. So we want to turn ourselves around again to point at our retrograde vector. Now, to land, you want to basically follow the retrograde vector all the way down. And you want to try and control your vertical velocity. Also, press G now to deploy your landing gear, because you don't want to forget, right? It's rather messy sometimes. So here we go, we're still falling towards the surface, and at this point I'm going to start killing my velocity, because this looks like a pretty good place to land. And as I kill my velocity, what will happen is I'll start falling towards the planet, or the moon, as I kill off all my orbital velocity. Bring it down to about 300 meters per second maybe. I'm just rotating it this way. Now, if you have ground scatter turned on, you will be able to see little rocks on the ground. It doesn't matter if you hit those, they're just cosmetic. But they actually help you estimate where the surface of the moon is. Oh, there we go. Now we're going to be following this down. So yeah, this is the demo. The demo disables your ability to load other parts, incidentally. The previous demo, you could have a whole bunch of parts. You just couldn't have plug-in powered components. Now you can't load any other parts. So the forums had a section that had included demo compatible add-ons. That will no longer be the case. You're going to be limited to only the ones that are bundled. So again, I'm just going to keep dropping my velocity down slowly, aiming to kind of kill my lateral velocity. It's hard to kind of judge. You obviously want to reach 0 meters per second when you reach the surface. Now, I'm just dropping myself down to 50. If I press the C button in the cockpit, you can see on the bottom right there is this radar altimeter. That shows you how high you exactly are. That's me 1 kilometer up. So I'm going to aim to kill my velocity a bit more. And you want to hit the surface going less than 10 meters per second. And that requires you to basically keep on this nav ball, on the vertical velocity thing. And... oh! There we go! Beautiful landing! And I think we have plenty of fuel, but not until... we're not going to go home just yet. We are going to show one of the other features that has been added. Obviously, yes, you've seen me do this in the real game. But if you're new and have previously played the demo but haven't got the full version, we now have EVA support, which is great. Of course, you press R and you can fly around in your little rocket pack. You know, you can take a look, see what the moon looks like. You can go and investigate some rocks, I guess. And yeah, you can slide along the surface with the greatest of ease. Because that's how Kerbals roll. Or slide, as the case may be. Where's our rocket? There we go. Let's fly back a little. There's a nice... let's go and investigate this rock over here. It's a nice little rock. Yeah, so performance-wise, it feels a lot snappier in a number of places, I have to say. And that's, you know, some people attribute that to Unity 4. I might, you know, err on the side of safety and say maybe it's only because there's only 25 parts in the game and fewer planets and everything. There we go, that's a nice rock. As I said, I think the rocks... oh, yes, the rocks are completely inert right now. Unless you're talking about some of the... there are some things that are not inert. Let's fly back to the moon rocket again. Whoa, here we go. So, pardon me. Other limitations in the demo is that you can only have 3 active spacecraft. So, while you do have persistence and you can go out and interact with other spacecraft, hey, you can even do a pretty good approximation of a lunar orbit rendezvous, or rather, Moonar orbit rendezvous, using, you know, EVA. You just can't dock, but you can get pretty close to an Apollo-style mission because you can put multiple command pods on a ship. Also, as I said, because you have persistence, you can go out and if one of your spacecraft is stuck in orbit, you can rescue it, which is great, huh? You can do your own rescue missions. Hit F5 again to save. But just be careful that if you have since you're limited to 3 flights, you can only have, you know, 2 people needing rescued. After that, you're stuck. Also, I should mention that the demo only has the moon, the sun, and the planet Kerbin. There is no other planets, not even Minmus. This is why I'm going to the moon, because my previous tutorial on landing on other moons was targeted at Minmus, because Minmus is a whole lot easier. So now, we're going to lift off, and we are going to look at the nav ball. Again, you're going to aim for the direction that says 90, right? We're going to take off, but unlike the planet Kerbin, there's no atmosphere to slow us down. So pretty much after going up, we're going to turn over very, very quickly compared to the planet Kerbin. And we want to get to about 500 meters per second before we decide to leave. Actually, I mean, we could probably go straight into an escape trajectory, but I'm going to go into an orbit first before I go to the escape trajectory, because you need to make sure that you leave orbit at exactly the right time. So here we go. We're going to start thrusting, and I'm going to steer over this direction almost right away. You see that? Very quickly. And you see we have a lot of acceleration here, so it gets us up to speed very quickly. I'm just going to put myself right on that. Again, 550 meters per second is roughly the velocity we need. So we're going to hit that, and then I'm going to cut the power and take a look to see if I need to adjust my orbit. Also, be aware that some of these mountains can be pretty high, so you don't want to crash into anything. Okay, so there we've got a little bit of an orbit. We're just going to go in here and adjust it so we get a proper orbit here, again using the same maneuver node. We're only going to need 30 meters per second. Aha, there is the Lunar Canyon. That's quite a nice little place to visit. Very scenic little canyon down there. I believe that some of the Easter eggs may be on the moon, but I can't guarantee it. So anyway, oh yeah, we can't warp faster than... you can't warp below 5 kilometers. So there we go. We're just going to wait for our time to accelerate up, or for us to get altitude so we can time accelerate. So anyway, yeah, as I said, this is the first viewing of Kerbal Space Program on Unity 4. We will be no doubt expecting a full release of the full version that is targeted to Unity 4, but we don't know when that will be. So if you want to see how well it performs, look there in the background there is the lunar arch on the horizon there. Just right above the rocket right now there is a grey blob. That is an arch, which if you are really good you can try flying through. I, however, am running out of fuel, so I'm just going to go to my maneuver node and get myself into orbit here. Now notice that I think I'm running out of fuel here, so perhaps you might want to make that initial rocket even bigger. Just, if you find you're running out of fuel, don't be afraid to make an even bigger rocket. Oh look, there's another arch there, I believe. That might be an arch, or it might be the Armstrong Monument. I think it's an arch, but that confirms my suspicion that the Easter eggs are intact. They have not been broken for the sake of the demo version. So there we go. 10 seconds to my burn. And we're just going to burn 30 meters per second, and that puts us into a stable orbit around the moon. And from there, we want to try and return to Kerbin. There we go. And that's us. Kill the maneuver node again. So now we're in 15 by 15. Alright, that's a pretty nice orbit. In fact, you can see this is jittering, which means we're very close to a perfectly circular orbit. Now, we are orbiting anti-clockwise around the moon, right? We're orbiting like that. So we want to travel back to the planet Kerbin. Now, the moon is moving to the right in this image, so we want to kill our orbital velocity, which means we probably want to burn about there. So I'm going to click on there, add a maneuver node, and again drag out my prograde velocity vector, and then you see that that is us killing our vertical velocity, and we want that to touch the planet Kerbin at about 35 kilometers. There we go, that's pretty close. So 277.2 meters per second, and our burn is 31 minutes away. So again, 50 times time acceleration. We can continue to enjoy the sights of low lunar orbit. Jebediah Kerman, of course, has seen this 1,000 times. In fact, he has been stranded on some of these places for years. He is no stranger to interplanetary bodies. In fact, I think this Jebediah Kerman is probably wondering where all the other planets have gone, and he doesn't understand the whole concept of a demo. For him, everything is real. There is no such thing as a demo or a simulation. Okay, just kidding. But yeah, 5 minutes, 4 minutes, 3 minutes, 2 minutes. Just slow down the time a little more. And we're getting very close. Da, 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 da. There, okay. And point ourselves on the vector, press T again, and start burning. And hopefully we have enough fuel to get this down the way to all the way to 0 without running out. Of course we have. But I might point out, now let's see what it says. Our periapse is 71. Look, if we kill a maneuver node, we can do this manually now. We can just burn and get it to about 27. And I'm doing that because I understand that in a future version of Kerbal Space Program, we will have re-entry heat. And so not going straight down into the atmosphere will probably save you from a fiery death. But it's just good practice to kind of enter the atmosphere between about 35 and 20 kilometers to be your periapse. Too high up and you'll skip out and come back again, and too low down and you'll decelerate very quickly. But yeah, I think I have a bit of fuel left. You might definitely consider that if you're having troubles flying this mission profile to take my initial rocket and lengthen one of the stages so that you have more fuel. That would certainly probably give you quite a boost. Don't lengthen this final stage. This is the one that you really need to do. You need to be light and small. So yeah, we're just going to time accelerate now. And let's watch ourselves fly away from the moon, and we'll watch for the sphere of influence transition. Watch the nav ball, and you'll see everything flicks around when we transition out of the SOI. Traveling about times 100 time acceleration, times 1000, and wait for it. There we go. Now the moon is there, or the sun is there. The planet Kerbin is there. For goodness sakes, I'm really tired. And we are on a nice return trajectory. So we're just going to time accelerate down there, and then once we enter the atmosphere, the time acceleration will turn off, and we should probably press space to drop our stage. If you really want to show off, you can probably land this thing using a combination of the parachute and the rocket. But I think just to, make it look the part, we're just going to ditch the spacecraft when we hit the upper atmosphere, just when we start grazing at 70 kilometers. There we go. So I'm going to turn this thing around, point it up. Let's say point it. Blue is up. Note. There we go. If you find yourself thrusting and you're pointing at the red, then you are probably going the wrong way. There we go. So that's going to fall down faster than us and crash into the surface, whereas we will splash down, I imagine. We can actually go into the map and see what our course is. Also notice, now that we're inside the atmosphere, we can zoom out and you can see that our apoapsis is dropping down as we are shedding velocity. If we were to skip through the atmosphere, that would be the orbit we would end up on. But that's not going to happen because we are going very, very low into the atmosphere here. So in the atmosphere, you can still use the time acceleration keys, but there is danger that if you use these with large rockets that things will break. So don't go too fast. It gives you this warning. It's entirely possible you do fast time acceleration and your rocket collapses on itself like a pancake. So I'm just waiting to get down, waiting for my lateral velocity to drop below, the speed of sound, and then I will deploy the parachute. And we might actually end up... Are we going to fly over this piece of land? No, I think we are. That's our capsule. And 1200 meters per second. The lower down you go, the faster your deceleration. This is showing me decelerating at about 2 Gs. So we're just going to land off the coast of this little spit of land. And that thing will just flatten itself as it lands in the water, obviously. Because it has no parachute. And again, using the time acceleration really helps. So what else? The demo. Oh, so another thing about the Unity 4 engine that I haven't mentioned. The fact that they've got the demo running on Unity 4 is a great sign if you're a Linux user, because I believe that Unity 4 officially supports Linux, so we might be seeing a version of that soon. And I mean, the devs have said that they plan to do this. Okay, press the spacebar to deploy the parachute. And so yeah, we'll see an official Linux version, and maybe we'll see it. Well, we see better Mac support as well. Anyway, that's us. We have completed a Mooner mission using the demo, and I think that is all. We're just gonna wait for this to accelerate down. Don't time accelerate too fast at 500 meters. Turn off your time acceleration before you hit 500 meters. That splash, by the way, was the rocket stage. Now I can use time acceleration to bring it down. You want to be careful hitting anything going at too high time acceleration, because sometimes the engine breaks and things die, and it would be a shame to come back to the planet all this way and then die because you had time acceleration turned up too much. There we go. 29, 10 meters, 5 meters, splash down at last. And so with that, I shall bid my farewell. I hope you've enjoyed my overview of the new Kerbal Space Program demo. It's worth looking at. Again, as I said, if you are a new player who's not played it, this was a nice little guide on how to get to the moon. I have another easier tutorial which concerns the full version that specifically talks about how to build rockets, but this pretty much covers everything you need to know about getting to the moon and back. Although you might want a slightly bigger rocket is my only thing. Also be aware that, you know, there's more efficient ways to build rockets using the demo. I just chose a very simple way to kind of demonstrate the concept of staging, and so I could have all the different engine types. You can use fuel lines to transfer fuel between stages and get a much smaller rocket. But that's half the fun, and I don't want to give it all away. Anyway, I'm Scott Manley. Fly safe.